Avon woke up like he always did on a Monday morning, groggy, disoriented, and utterly indifferent to the monumental events of the world around him. He stretched lazily, glanced at his phone, swiped through the notifications, and sighed. The usual assortment of fake news, celebrity scandals, and politics that could only make him question his existence. God, it's too early for this, Avon muttered, rubbing his eyes as he shuffled toward the kitchen. He wasn't in the mood for the newsfeed's usual panic about some new world-ending disaster. There was always something. But today, it seemed, the universe had decided to one-up itself. Just as he poured himself the first of what would be 5 cups of coffee, something changed. It wasn't the typical change that you'd notice, like a new season or a change in weather. No, this was the kind of shift that rewrote the rules of reality itself. There was a sudden, deafening crack in the sky. Avon paused mid-pour, blinking. What the hell? He set the coffee pot down, wondering if the caffeine was kicking in too early. But no, the crack grew louder, like the sound of the heavens themselves being torn apart. His balcony was bathed in an otherworldly glow. At first, it was just a shimmer, a flicker at the corner of his eye. Then, as if someone had taken a cosmic scissors and sliced the atmosphere in half, a massive, glowing rift appeared above him. Avon's jaw dropped. From the rift, an enormous shape began to descend. A spaceship? No, it was something far beyond that. The thing was a floating monstrosity, its sleek surface shimmering with an iridescent energy that defied all earthly physics. It wasn't made of metal or any material that Avon recognized. It simply existed. From it, a booming voice echoed down at him, as if reality itself were speaking. Avon, you stand in direct violation of the universal laws. You are a rift, an anomaly. The judgment has been passed, you must be eradicated. Avon blinked again, slowly, his hand still holding the half-filled coffee mug. His mind raced. He looked around, wondering if this was a prank or a viral marketing stunt for some ridiculous sci-fi movie. But no, the ship was very real, and this strange, booming voice? Definitely not from Earth. Excuse me, what? Avon called up, half laughing at the absurdity of it all. The voice from above did not appreciate his tone. You are a paradox. Your existence threatens the fabric of reality itself. You are in violation of universal equilibrium. Avon scratched his head. This had to be a joke. Maybe some alien kids in hovercrafts were trolling the planet for fun. Or, even better, maybe this was some kind of avant-garde performance art. Either way, he wasn't having it. All right, okay, Avon said, chuckling now, his skepticism mounting. You're saying I'm a paradox, right? Like, I'm a riddle wrapped in an enigma, sort of thing? Because, really, I'm just a guy trying to have a cup of coffee. What exactly do you want me to do about it? I'm not breaking any laws here, unless you're counting the no caffeine before noon rule. The voice above paused, as if processing this. You mock the judgment, but it is not a joke. We are the antimatter civilization. Our purpose is to correct anomalies like you. Prepare for the eradication. Avon set his mug down and raised his arms in mock surrender. Look, pal, you're making a huge mistake. I'm just an ordinary guy, no threat to space-time, no threat to anyone. I'm not even that good at cooking. He scratched his chin, considering something. Though, if you want to talk about violations, I could use a judge for my cooking attempts. They've been disastrous. At that exact moment, a sudden, sharp, high-pitched hum filled the air as the colossal alien ship above released a burst of energy. Avon ducked instinctively, and then, everything went quiet. Then, boom. Reality itself seemed to shudder. Avon's coffee mug floated up into the air, defying gravity, and the world around him started to flicker. He watched, bewildered, as the streets below seemed to stretch like rubber, time rippling in and out. The air shimmered. And then, as if the very laws of physics were unsure of themselves, everything began to float, the trees, the buildings, even Avon himself. He was weightless, his feet drifting off the ground like a balloon in the breeze. He looked down at his own body, now floating in midair. The absurdity of it all hit him in waves. "Okay, seriously," he said aloud, still half in disbelief, "this has got to be a prank, right? Who set this up? The aliens from the next-door theater group? Is this their idea of making an entrance?" The booming voice returned, sounding even more irate. "You do not understand. You are not part of the natural order. Your existence," but before the voice could finish, Avon interrupted. Yeah, I got it. I'm an anomaly, a danger to the fabric of space-time. You've got a whole end-of-the-world spiel. But could you maybe, dial it down? I'm just trying to get through the day. You can't seriously think I'm the one who's messing with physics." From the strange alien ship came another pulse of energy, this time smaller but no less intense. Avon felt a sharp tug, as though reality were stretching him like a rubber band, and suddenly, everything stopped. The floating objects crashed back to the ground with loud thuds, and gravity resumed its regular pull. Avon hit the ground hard. He groaned, rubbing his head. The coffee mug, once floating serenely, now lay shattered at his feet. "Great," he muttered, standing up, wiping dust off his clothes. "Just great. My morning coffee ritual is officially ruined." The ship hovered ominously overhead, the glowing alien figure within now fully visible. It looked like something out of a nightmare, a towering figure clad in a shimmering robe of anti-light, a face obscured by a glowing mask, and eyes that seemed to pierce through the very fabric of reality itself. "You mock the laws of the cosmos," the figure intoned. "But it is not just you. Every time you use your powers, reality shifts. We have come to destroy you, Avon, and restore the order you've so carelessly broken." Avon stood up, brushing himself off, his nerves beginning to spark with something other than fear. If these guys wanted a fight, they were about to get one. But he had one question, one burning curiosity. "All right," Avon said, squaring his shoulders. "But before we start with this erasure thing, could you at least explain what you mean by powers? I mean, I'm just a guy with a coffee addiction. I don't do superhero stuff. So what gives?" The figure paused, almost as if considering him. Then it spoke, with surprising clarity. "Your powers are the very disruption of physics. When you are near, the laws of gravity, time, and matter bend. You are a walking paradox, Avon, and you must be eradicated." Avon blinked, looking down at his hands as if expecting something to happen. A moment passed, then, without warning, the ground beneath him shuddered again. This time, his coffee mug hovered in midair, then spun around like a top before falling to the ground with a clink. Avon blinked again. "Okay," he said, half to himself and half to the alien judge, "so, I guess I do have some weird powers." He paused, watching the alien figure above. "All right, I'm listening. Eradicate me, destroy reality, whatever. But just, maybe, tell me what happens to the coffee? Because that's what really concerns me right now." The alien figure above seemed to pause for a moment. If it were capable of confusion, Avon might have suspected that it was trying to process his words. Instead, the voice came again, thick with authority. "The disruption you cause is not just a matter of inconvenience, Avon. Time, space, and energy all exist in delicate balance. When you act, even by accident, you break these bonds. Do you understand what that means?" Avon didn't quite know what to say. He looked at the alien figure again, squinting into the glowing abyss of its mask. The idea of being a cosmic mistake, some anomaly floating through time and space without meaning, was unsettling, but not nearly as unsettling as the fact that he was going to have to figure out how to stop this thing from destroying him. And maybe Earth, too, if this was what it seemed to be. But the coffee, was still bothering him. All right, I get it, okay? I'm a walking disaster waiting to happen. But can we dial it down a bit? I mean, I didn't even know I had powers. What's the deal? How am I supposed to control something like this? A deep, resonant hum came from the ship as if the whole structure was considering his question. The figure's voice was calm but insistent. You may not know, but your very presence causes alterations to physical reality. Each time you use your abilities, something shifts. It could be gravity, time, or even matter itself. You may not see the effects immediately, but the damage is significant. Well, Avon muttered, scratching his head, I was wondering why gravity felt a little off this morning. I thought it was the coffee, but now it looks like I'm the one who's causing a ripple effect. The judge didn't respond to the sarcasm. Instead, it gestured with one glowing hand, and Avon felt his body float up into the air again. It was as if gravity had turned into something more like a suggestion. This time, Avon stayed still, his feet hovering a few inches above the ground. I do not care for your mockery, the judge said. But you must understand the implications of your actions. If you persist in your defiance, the consequences will not only be your erasure but the destruction of everything you know. Avon wasn't sure if he was supposed to feel guilty, or terrified, or maybe even curious. Maybe a little of all of those things. But he had one big question that wasn't being answered. Look, I get that I'm causing problems, but, he hesitated, trying to find the words. What exactly do you expect me to do about it? I don't know how to control reality. I'm not exactly a superhero. I don't even know where to start. There was a long pause before the alien figure spoke again. You were chosen because your anomaly is unique. Your power, while chaotic, is not beyond understanding. If you are willing to learn, we will teach you to control it. But understand this, for every moment you hesitate, the universe slips further into imbalance. Your learning must begin immediately. Avon snorted under his breath. Great. No pressure or anything. The ship above began to hum once more, a lower, deeper frequency this time. The air around Avon shifted, and his body slowly lowered back down to the ground, though his feet remained light and almost weightless. He couldn't help but feel like a balloon tethered to the earth with a single string. It wasn't a feeling he particularly enjoyed. I'll teach you how to harness your power, the judge continued. But it is not a simple thing. Each time you try, you will risk more damage. Do not think that you can control it as you would a simple tool. Your powers are woven into the very fabric of reality. We can only guide you. Avon tried to clear his head, brushing his hands over his face. Okay, he muttered, as if agreeing with himself more than anything. So, what's the first lesson? The glowing figure's voice seemed to soften, though it was still devoid of any warmth. The first lesson is simple: you must understand the nature of your own power. Avon let out a long breath. Yeah, I'm really not in the mood for riddles today. What does that even mean? Instead of answering directly, the figure gestured once again. The space around Avon rippled, and suddenly, the entire world seemed to fold in on itself. The sky above him twisted into a spiraling vortex, as if reality itself were being sucked into a black hole. For a brief moment, Avon felt his stomach flip like he was on a roller coaster, and then everything came to a jarring halt. The world around him shifted again. The trees had started growing sideways. The buildings seemed to lean and stretch in ways that defied logic, their very shapes warping like something out of a Salvador Dali painting. Avon could see people walking, but they were moving in slow motion, their limbs moving almost comically, as if time itself had slowed down. Welcome to your first lesson, the voice said. This is what happens when your powers are uncontrolled. You distort the very fabric of space and time. Now, you must try to fix it. Avon frowned, glancing around at the twisted landscape. He wasn't sure where to start or what to do. All he wanted was to get back to his apartment and get a cup of coffee that didn't float into the air and then crash to the ground. But this wasn't some bad dream. It was real. This was his reality now, and if he didn't figure out how to control it, the universe was going to rip itself apart. All right, he muttered. He stretched his arms out, trying to focus. Fix it. How the hell am I supposed to fix this? Focus, the judge instructed. Concentrate on the one thing you can control, your mind. Your power is tied to your will. You must align your thoughts with the fabric of reality. Avon closed his eyes, trying to block out the bizarre, twisting world around him. The distorted trees, the floating cars, the people frozen mid-motion, it was all too much. His head was starting to spin, and the coffee seemed like a distant memory now. Focus, he repeated under his breath, focus. He tried to clear his mind, but it was harder than he thought. The strange sensation of floating in a world that refused to behave made it difficult to concentrate. But something clicked. Maybe it was the lack of gravity pulling at him, maybe it was the stillness around him, but the world seemed quieter, somehow. His thoughts slowed, his breathing deepened, and slowly, he began to visualize the world as it should be. The trees straightened. The buildings stopped bending and flickering like holograms. Time, slow and unyielding, gradually returned to normal speed. Avon opened his eyes, feeling a little lightheaded. The world around him seemed solid again. No more floating debris or warped buildings. He hadn't made everything perfect, but he'd made it better. Well, he said, looking around. That wasn't too bad, right? The voice from above was almost approving. You've begun to grasp the nature of your power. But it is not enough. You must learn to control it fully. Only then will you be able to restore balance. There will be no second chances. Avon was already feeling a sense of dread crawling back into his chest, but he pushed it down. The universe wasn't going to end because of a few mistakes, or at least, that was the hope. He had time, right? He'd learn. He'd figure it out. It was just a matter of practice. The judge's voice sounded again, a little colder than before. Do not mistake this for mercy. We will not allow your failures to spread further. Avon frowned, wiping his forehead. Yeah, I got it. No pressure. But the truth was, Avon had a lot of pressure now. The weight of the universe was in his hands, and the only way to fix it was to somehow learn how to control something that defied all logic. It wasn't a small task, but if there was one thing Avon knew, it was that sometimes, the only way out of a mess was to make it your own, and maybe, just maybe, he'd learn how to fix his coffee, too. Avon stood still, trying to steady his breathing as the world around him slowly returned to some semblance of normal. He felt strange, like he was carrying the weight of the entire universe in his hands. And, in some ways, he was. The power to control reality wasn't something he'd ever imagined would be his responsibility. Hell, he couldn't even keep his apartment clean on a regular basis. Now, he was expected to learn how to stop the collapse of the cosmos just by concentrating. It felt like a bad joke, but it wasn't. The alien figure in front of him didn't seem concerned with his discomfort. Its glowing eyes pierced through the swirling energy of the rift above them, its presence unwavering. You have shown an understanding of your power, it said. But understanding alone is not enough. You must prove your control, or else you will cause further destruction. You will need to do more than fix simple distortions of reality. The test will continue, Avon. Your fate depends on it. Avon barely had time to absorb the weight of that statement before the world around him shifted again. This time, the distortion wasn't gentle or slow. The ground beneath his feet trembled, and the air around him crackled with energy. His stomach lurched, the sense of weightlessness flooding him again. Whoa, wait! Avon gasped, grabbing at the air as he was pulled into a swirling vortex. This wasn't like last time, where he had a bit of control. He was being sucked into something far worse. He kicked his legs, trying to steady himself, but nothing seemed to hold him. His body spun wildly as if he were caught in the eye of a tornado. He could feel his mind racing, but his body was helpless. The alien figure's voice rang out again, cutting through the chaos. This is not your world anymore, Avon. You must learn to direct this energy. Focus. Or else you will be lost in the collapse. He tried to focus, trying to remember what he'd just done, how he'd restored the landscape. That same calm, that same concentration, it had to be enough to stop this. But the vortex wasn't just a simple glitch. It was pulling at him in ways that defied the natural laws he thought he understood. Avon stretched his arms out in front of him, concentrating hard on the sensation of the world turning against him. If he was going to stop this, he had to learn how to bend it to his will, to make reality bend to him, not the other way around. The effort felt like pulling himself up from the bottom of an ocean. Every fiber of his being was fighting the intense pull of the vortex, trying to align his mind with the overwhelming, chaotic force around him. Focus, the voice demanded again, this time tinged with something like impatience. You must focus. You are nothing if you cannot control this. The power inside him was a living thing, an untamed force. But there was something else too, something different. The more Avon concentrated, the more he felt like he could sense the flow of energy. He could feel the strain in the universe, the momentary cracks in the structure of reality. Then, just as the vortex seemed on the verge of swallowing him whole, Avon did the only thing he could think of. He stopped fighting it. He let go. The world around him shifted. The vortex began to slow, the spinning lessening until, with a sudden jolt, the motion reversed entirely. The energy in the air started to settle. His stomach calmed. Gravity returned, and his feet hit solid ground with a heavy thud. Avon stumbled back, his breath coming in sharp gasps. He was on his knees, sweat dripping down his forehead. The alien judge was silent, as though it, too, had felt the change. For a moment, Avon just sat there, collecting himself. He couldn't help but think how absurd this whole situation was. He had spent his entire life avoiding responsibilities, always pushing them aside or blaming the world around him for the messes he created. And now, here he was, facing a cosmic force that required him to take control of the very fabric of existence. Well, that wasn't so bad, Avon muttered, though his voice was shaky. I think I actually got the hang of this whole reality-bending thing. He tried to sound confident, but deep down, he felt like he was hanging on by a thread. The weight of his new role threatened to crush him at any moment. The alien's response was as cold and detached as ever. You did not bend reality, Avon. You reversed it. You simply made it undo its current state. This is not control. This is instinct. Avon gritted his teeth, frustration bubbling up inside him. You're really starting to sound like my high school math teacher. That doesn't sound like a victory, huh? So, what exactly is control, then? You must direct the energy, the figure explained, its voice becoming more instructional. Control is not simply about undoing the damage, Avon. It is about shaping the reality you wish to create. You must learn to impose your will on it. A true master of power does not fight the energy, they become one with it. Avon frowned, standing up shakily. This was more than he'd bargained for. The idea of becoming one with a chaotic, unpredictable force sounded terrifying. But what choice did he have? If he didn't figure this out, if he didn't gain full control, the consequences would be far worse than just losing his morning coffee. All right, Avon said, his voice low and determined. Teach me. Show me how to shape this energy. He wiped the sweat from his brow, steeling himself for the next round. Let's see if I can actually get this right. The alien judge didn't respond immediately, but Avon could feel the presence above him, the weight of judgment pressing down. And then, suddenly, the world around him shifted again, the sky darkened, the clouds churning like a storm on the horizon. The air became thick with energy, crackling with potential. Avon's skin prickled as he felt the power gathering. This was real. This was the test. You are ready, the figure intoned. Focus on the energy. Shape it. This is your moment. Avon closed his eyes and inhaled deeply. The air felt heavy, charged with electricity. His heart pounded in his chest as he reached out mentally, trying to connect with the strange energy that surrounded him. He could feel it now, pulsing beneath his skin, a power that surged with endless possibility. But it was so vast, so overwhelming that he could barely comprehend it. This wasn't like anything he'd ever dealt with before. It wasn't just a thing that could be controlled with brute force. This was a force of nature itself, a cosmic pulse that flowed through everything, a fluid, shifting current of energy. Avon reached deeper, searching for that center of calm, that anchor in the storm. He imagined the world around him as a piece of clay, soft and malleable, waiting to be shaped by his hands. His fingers twitched. The world began to respond. Slowly, he focused on one spot, a crumpled piece of metal on the ground. His mind reached out to it, and he could feel the particles vibrating, their bonds stretching as he mentally grasped them. With a steady hand, he willed the metal to straighten, to return to its original form. For a split second, nothing happened. His breath caught in his throat. Then, with a quiet sheeing, the metal slowly began to straighten, its jagged edges smoothing out. The particles realigned themselves, as if his will had been woven into the very fibers of the object. Avon opened his eyes to see the metal gleaming in the dim light, perfectly restored. He let out a shaky breath of relief. "Okay," he muttered, a grin creeping onto his face. "I think I'm starting to get the hang of this." The alien judge observed in silence, but there was a subtle shift in the energy around Avon. The presence, though still commanding, seemed to soften. "If only slightly. You have learned the first lesson," the judge said. "But the path ahead will not be easy. Control takes time, and every moment you hesitate, you risk more damage. Are you prepared for what is to come?" Avon's heart raced. He didn't know if he was prepared for any of this. But there was no turning back now. The universe was in his hands, and whether he liked it or not, he had to make it right. "I'll do whatever it takes," Avon said, his voice steady. "Just teach me what I need to know." The alien figure did not reply, but the rift in the sky above him flickered once more, the next challenge waiting, and this time, Avon was ready.